Welcome, lords and ladies, back to the Caster Cantina. I am your bartender, the Goat King, and I should warn you, today's special is a real mind melter. Today, we cover the Psychic from Pathfinder 2nd Edition's Dark Archive. I will also have a link in the description to the Archives of Nethys, where you can find the Psychic for free. Psychics are spontaneous casters of the occult tradition. Their key ability is either intelligence or charisma, depending on their choice of subclass. Naturally, psychics cast spells with their minds, using mental tricks, triggers, and mantras in place of verbally commanding their magic. Even their somatic components are more subtle than typical casters. Psychics are little limited on spell slots compared to most spontaneous casters, only ever gaining 2 slots per spell level. Psychic subclass choice will provide an extra known spell per level, but it will not provide any extra spell slots. It does, however, give you some special cantrips known as psi cantrips. Psi cantrips can be cast as normal cantrips, but they can also be upgraded by spending a focus point as part of the casting. This is called amping. Psychics start with 2 focus points, and as long as they only spend those points on their psychic abilities, they can regain 2 focus points whenever refocusing. All psychics also start with an ability known as Unleash Psyche. Once a psychic casts a spell in an encounter, so long as they aren't stupefied, they can unleash their psyche on their next turn. This is an ultimate expression of mind over matter, as their will is visibly manifest around them. The psychic spells hit harder, and they gain the ability to perform specific actions with the psyche trait, the first of which comes from their subclass. This outpouring is taxing, however. After 2 rounds, the power fades, causing the psychic to gain the Stupefied 1 condition for 2 rounds. During this time, the psyche cannot be unleashed again. Now, we keep mentioning the psyche's subclass. Time to explain. The psychic's subclass is formed by separately choosing a conscious and subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is how your psychic casts their spells. It decides whether your key ability is intelligence or charisma, and it provides your first psyche action. Emotional acceptance fuels your magic with emotion. Your key ability is charisma, and your psyche action is restore the mind. This allows you to give an ally a small number of hit points or a bonus to saves against mental effects. Gathered lore is for those few psychics with formal training in their powers. Their key ability is intelligence, and their psyche action is recall the teachings. This prepares you to aid an ally in need, choosing freely at the time you take the reaction. This aid uses the occultism skill. Precise discipline is about constraining and focusing your magic. Your key ability is intelligence, and your psyche action is calculate threats. This action alerts you to the possible attacks of your enemies, providing you a bonus to reflex saves and armor class. Wandering Reverie is the subconscious mind of those psychics with their heads perpetually in the clouds. Charisma is their key ability, and Fade into Daydreams is their psyche action. This action shrouds you in daydream-like wisps, providing the concealed condition. So those were the subconscious minds, the how and why of psychic magic. Your conscious mind is the what of your magic. The conscious mind provides 3 things. A list of granted spells, 1 per spell level. You learn these as you gain the ability to cast more and more powerful spells. Standard psi cantrips. You gain 2 cantrips that can be amped with focus points to have greater effects. Notably, 1 gained from your conscious mind rather than normal spell choice. These cantrips already have a small upgrade to their effects. Unique psi cantrips. You gain a unique cantrip at 1st level, 6th level, and 10th level. These special cantrips cannot be accessed in any other way. They are unique to their conscious mind. As per normal psi cantrips, they can be amped with focus points. We will only be detailing the first unique cantrip for each conscious mind. Distant Grasp is the conscious mind of motion and telekinesis. It grants the spells Kinetic Ram, Telekinetic Maneuver, Levitate, Fly, Telekinetic Haul, Poltergeist's Fury, Telekinetic Bombardment, Falling Sky, and Implosion. Your standard psi cantrips are Mage Hand and Telekinetic Projectile. Your Mage Hand has a significant upgrade to its carrying capacity, and when amped, allows you to shove on creatures and eventually even attempt to disarm them. Your Telekinetic Projectile has increased range, and the amp allows it to push the target away from you. Your unique psi cantrips are Telekinetic Rend, Vector Screen, and Dancing Blade. Telekinetic Rend has a 60-foot range and causes 2 separate damaging areas. You choose bludgeoning or slashing damage, but when you amp this cantrip, it applies both. The Infinite Eye is the conscious mind that allows sight through both space and time. It grants the spells True Strike, Augury, Organ Sight, Clairvoyance, Prying Eye, True Seeing, True Target, Unrelenting Observation, and Foresight. Your standard psi cantrips are Detect Magic and Guidance. Your Detect Magic can detect creatures holding magic items or affected by a spell. This also applies to hazards. The Amp gives you a status bonus to saves against magical effects from all detected sources of magic for 3 rounds. Your Guidance cantrip has great range, and the Amp ignores a target's immunity to guidance from previous castings, and can be cast as a reaction to the ally failing a roll, retroactively applying the bonus and potentially changing the outcome. Your unique psi cantrips are Glimpse Weakness, Omnidirectional Scan, and Foresee the Path. Glimpse Weakness has good range, only takes a single action to cast, and lasts up to a minute until used. This cantrip adds precision damage to the next successful strike against the target, and the amp increases that damage by a small amount. The Oscillating Wave is a more complex conscious mind. It focuses on the movement and conservation of energy. When using your granted spells and cantrips, your damage alternates between fire and cold, changing the damage type of your granted spells and cantrips to match. This can even apply to damage from psychic feats if they have the Mindshift trait. Your granted spells are Burning Hands, Heat Metal, Fireball, Fire Shield, Cone of Cold, Flame Vortex, Fiery Body, Polar Ray, and Meteor Swarm. Your standard psi cantrips are Produce Flame and Ray of Frost. Your Produce Flame is more potent in melee and dramatically more potent when amped. Your Ray of Frost is given fantastic range and when amped, invigorates you with stolen heat, giving you temporary hit points. Your unique psi cantrips are Thermal Stasis and Tropic Wheel and Redistribute Potential. Thermal Stasis has good range and allows you to briefly protect an ally from fire and cold. The Amp greatly increases the duration. The Silent Whisper is the conscious mind of telepathy for both communication and manipulation. Your granted spells are Mind Link, Touch of Idiocy, Heroism, Telepathy, Synaptic Pulse, Sending, Visions of Danger, Uncontrollable Dance, and Telepathic Demand. Your standard psi cantrips are Daze and Message. Your Daze cantrip has an extended range, and when amped, Daze becomes significantly more powerful, and leaves the target open to further mental attacks. Your Message cantrips can snake around obstacles to reach targets otherwise out of line of sight or effect. The Amp allows your target to use a reaction to step or stride. Your unique psi cantrips are Forbidden Thought, Shatter Mind, and Contagious Idea. Forbidden Thought allows you to forbid the target from taking a specific action. If they attempt the action anyways, they take a small amount of mental damage. The amp increases the severity of the punishment by afflicting the stunned one condition. The tangible dream is the conscious mind of imagination made manifest. Your granted spells are Color Spray, Mirror Image, Sea of Thought, Resilient Sphere, Etheric Shards, Blade Barrier, Project Image, Scintillating Pattern, and Prismatic Sphere. Your standard side cantrips are Dancing Lights and Shield. Your dancing lights are not bound to each other or even you, allowing them to move freely when you sustain the spell. Alternately, if kept together, they can be amped to form a distracting light show. Your shield cantrip is more versatile, allowing you to defend others with its magic. And when amped, your shield forms several layers, allowing it to take much more punishment. Your unique side cantrips are Imaginary Weapon, Astral Rain, and Hologram Cage. Imaginary Weapon is a 2-action attack cantrip that acts like a 1d8 bludgeoning or slashing melee weapon. On a critical hit, this imaginary weapon can explode to shove the target away. The amp allows you to strike out at 2 separate targets. The unbound step is the conscious mind of psychics that treat the concept of locality like a toy. Your granted spells are Thoughtful Gift, Enlarge, Rally Point, Dimension Door, Strange Geometry, Collective Transposition, Momentary Recovery, Maze, and Bilocation. Your standard side cantrips are Phase Bolt and Warp Step. Your Phase Bolts diminish the effectiveness of the target's cover even to your allies by phasing said cover for a short time. When amped, your Phase Bolts pass through all barriers, ignoring a portion of the target's hardness and resistance. Your Warp Step cantrip makes you even faster. And when amped, you can cast Warp Step as a single action. Your unique side cantrips are Distortion Lens, Ghostly Shift, and Tesseract Tunnel. Distortion Lens creates a 5-foot space that favors allied ranged attacks and punishes enemy ranged attacks. It does this by adding or subtracting from the range of attacks passing through its space. When amped, it also affects creature movement. I won't be going over Psychic class feats in this video, but if there is interest, we could revisit the Psychic to talk about both feats and build ideas. The Psychic's greatest weakness seems to be their limited spell slots. This is remedied, at least in terms of power, by their side cantrips. These side cantrips are more powerful than normal cantrips, and the ability to amp them with focus points makes them a much more reliable use of actions than normal cantrips. Combine this with Unleash Psyche, which is basically a magic rage, and the Psychic may be a top contender for Blaster Caster. The only thing holding them back from that would be the occult spell list. But some of the conscious minds, like Oscillating Wave, are loaded with damaging spells. It's with these thoughts that I bring this video to a close. Thank you for visiting the Caster Cantina. I have been your bartender, the Goat King, and as always, travel with loyal companions.